So where we left off, here we go. Yes. We were talking about sort of what the entrepreneurial process was like for you coming out of the field of collaborative law. That's where we
Hmm.
were at, and sort of how you made that leap to sort of get back into or to get into the entrepreneurship piece of building Get Artisan. Um, and we were talking about your book, your book writing process, and how that works,
Yeah.
and how you take apart an idea for a book, which is a completely different process than what I use when I build a book. And you were talking about sort of how you have the note cards, sort of all over the place after you write some questions and things like that.
That's it.
Yeah, does that sound about right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess my follow up to that, to the book writing piece, would be once you've gotten that part of the process down, and you've gotten the editor, and you've sort of lived with it for a while, and you sort of based it on it for a little while. How do you decide to sort of take that and move into other projects? And how do you market that? Like marketing is the one thing that I noticed that a lot of piece builders sort of struggle with, but you
Hmm.
don't seem to struggle with it. So where do you get that marketing gene from, and that set of marketing ideas from?
Okay. Yeah. I think that's probably the same answer as that question. What is it that you're absolutely terrible at? Certainly the social media and we have a look. You just recently have been experimenting with the paid for advertising. So digging deep and coughing up money and that way. So yeah, we can certainly talk about that. We can talk about that reticence kind of because I think there's something as well, something which is quite internal about all of that, which goes back to the idea of who do you think you are,
Yeah.
and the criticism, the opprobrium that we would get from our former peers and colleagues.
Well, I mean, and why do you think I when we talked a little bit about why that is, sort of, maybe making that stake out there, but there's so many different things to marketing, right? I mean, there's the paid
Mm.
piece, there's the organic piece. Um, I admit, I mean, I like marketing. I enjoy it. That's the most enjoyable part of my business is, doing the marketing piece and telling people
Mm.
what I do. For me, that's the most enjoyable part, and probably because I have a fine arts background, so for me, it's very creative,
Yeah.
and it gives me the opportunity to sort of mess around with things that I wouldn't normally get to mess around with when I'm digging into people's psychology and into people's lives.
Mm.
But for you, I would guess that would be a little bit different, right?
Uh, yeah. I mean, it's not that I don't enjoy it. It's just it's something I have to make myself do. Did we talk about cause and effect last time? I don't think we did
No, we
we?
didn't. We didn't talk about cause and effect. Let's talk about cause and effect.
Yeah. So it's just that idea that pretty much all of my work, I think, well, that's fancy that happening. It's and I don't attribute the success and the sales with what I do,
Hmm.
and so that means that that stops you from being strategic about doing stuff in the first place. Because if I made the link earlier that well actually I got that gig or I got that talk precisely because I put this blog post out or whatever it might be, then that would if you reverse engineer that, okay, and therefore, so if I do this regularly and consistently and systemize it, then that will generate more of the same effect,
Right.
i.e., more work.
More work.
So yeah, so we can certainly look at that. The reluctance. I think for lawyers and mediators, we certainly touched upon this, didn't we? And the idea that mediation organizations very often think, well, we're not that kind of organization,
Right.
and we can look at that reticence. Ooh, what will people say?
Right.
I think that's a really powerful point that keeps many people back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we are recording, so we're into it now. So I mean, like
Oh, okay.
we're going. So yeah, we've been recording for like the last 8 minutes, so we're going now. This is the interview. We're in it. I told you, it's very casual. This is the second part.
Okay.
It's very casual. I didn't know if you realized we were recording. It's all right. It's been
Uh, yeah. Okay. So I thought we were just looking at kind of headline
right.
straps and such. So now I've blurted it all out and I'm completely spent.
And now that's over. Well,
Which
thank you very much for listening to Earbud U.
which so which one do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's talk about your project Grudgeology and sort of how I
Yeah.
see that kind of, because we kind of touched on it a little bit last time, but I sort of see that covering a lot of what you're talking about: the reticence piece, the marketing piece, the connecting a blog post to getting work, connecting a video to getting work. I like the post that you've been putting out on LinkedIn about forgiveness and what that looks like.
Yeah.
Um, and I think you are making that connection, but I think it's happening subtly. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, a great case study to look. I've been doing this grudgeology talk for 3 years, 4 years, and it's a really neat workshop. It started off, that process that we looked at before, where I'd been asked to deliver a session at a conference. It wasn't a paid thing, so I come up with an idea and we float it and we test it, and the session really took off.
Mm-hmm.
Idea it would do. And grudgeology essentially looks at where grudges come from, our kind of life events, how we then take offense at something, and the grudge is born. And it looks at how we then feed the grudge and perpetuate it. And we do that by narrative, by telling stories. Hey, Hazen, did I tell you what happened to me the other week, the other year? Oh, that sounds like the time when Jonathan came to me and he really let me down bad. We kind of like scratch that itch time and time again by telling and retelling these stories. So that was the top level of the workshop I was delivering, and this was two mediators and lawyers, just trying to get them to be aware that what our clients might be telling us might not be the reality, but their grudge interpretation of it and how that works.
Yeah.
And I think that was amazing within that workshop, is that people then kind of sat up and realized, oh, hang on a second, I've got some grudges of my own, and can I ask you a question about that? And so this comes into this idea of who do you think you are? Because immediately the lawyer in me is thinking, is this counseling? Is this therapy? Am I falling into something that was somehow forbidden to me? And so we took steps to frame it and made it clear this wasn't counseling, this wasn't therapy. But if you want to share it as an example, we can do that. And grudgeology,
But that's really
I think,
storytelling, right? I mean, it's storytelling. It's not therapy. It's storytelling.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Which is the core of who human beings are, right?
Yes, and I mean there's something here about I think professional identities and professional camps and fear, professional ghettos, if you like,
Mm-hmm.
in that we saw this with the growth of the collaborative practice movement, in that this was predominantly a lawyer-led process in the early stages, and many therapists started getting quite prickly about this, and oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, that sounds like counseling, that sounds like therapy. A lot of resistant and quite antagonistic lawyers took a similar vein. Oh, that's not lawyering, that's counseling, that's being therapeutic.
Right.
And I'm always struck by this. I often meet in workshops when I'm training mediators and collaborative lawyers particular, and they'll put their hand up and we get this pushback. Oh, we can't ask those questions because we're not therapists, because we're not counselors. And these, I think we touched on this last time. There is no book for therapists and a book for lawyers.
Right.
There's no book that says if you're a lawyer, these are the questions that thou shalt not ask.
Right. Yeah. there's no Moses coming down from the mountain with the two tablets.
No. Or if he has, then he hasn't been at the same conferences as I've been to.
That's correct. Yeah, he's across the street.
Imagine that. Imagine you sign into some workshop, and this weird dude walks in with this big stone tablet. My gosh, Hazen had a point.
Well, if he is, he'd be bringing some other people with him, about 40,000 of them. So I don't think you'd want him at the conference.
Yeah, I mean, you'd notice that kind of stuff. You'd see it come. So there's something in it, and again, there's something within that about how we objectify ourselves. Well, I am a lawyer, and therefore this is what I do, and this is the limit of what I can do, and the limit of my of the limit of how I am able to interact with my clients and mediators as well. So we compartmentalize ourselves, and we we inhibit ourselves, and this is part of that problem when it comes to the marketing as well. So grudgeology, I wrestled with that for a long time. For about 18 months, I had a real crisis with it because I'd come across some people who had truly shocking life stories. Shocking. There's one chap whose mother had been murdered by a serial killer and such like, and that led me to the "Who do you think you are" voice
Right.
cropped up again.
Yeah.
I thought, well, who am I to be speaking about grudgeology, which is essentially about forgiveness,
Right.
and I really had to get over that. I had some vicious, staggering feedback and challenges from, if you like, my old tribe, within law and such like, again, along the lines of, who do you think you are? Which was remarkable. It would have been about a year ago. I was deliberately and consciously marketing the speaking work and the training workshops, and the pushback was hideous and really quite bruising. I think you are, and which was astounding. I'm glad that I did this. I got in touch with the person who'd given that feedback, and said, I'm curious, what's what's behind this, and we had a conversation which was honest and certainly interesting, and it was interesting to kind of confront that, and in a gentle way, in a exploratory, creative way, and just get a feeling for it. So marketing is difficult for all those reasons.
Well, and are you marketing the story, or are you marketing the experience of the story? I mean, when you talk about somebody who has had an experience where, there's been a serial killer, and that's, I mean,
Yeah.
that's huge. That's a huge kind of experience. And so, yeah, even I would sort of, be hesitant there,
Yeah, and
wanting to not be out of my depth.
I think that's exactly it. And so grudgeology is now in its second generation, if you like. So grudgeology has now become. It was always a bit standalone. I had no seller on at the end of this workshop. So people would come up and they say, "Neil, this is great. We love it." Some stunning feedback.
Yeah,
Life changing feedback.
yeah,
This kind of stuff, and people would say, "What's next?
right.
Where can I get more of this?"
Where can
And
I get more?
I was empty-handed, which if you're out there, if you're again, we can resist this idea, but it's a key marketing point. Always have the sell on. Always have the well, if you like that, then I think you'll like this. If you like that, then you might want to move on to this.
Right, right. Well,
And
and you want to
I
go.
think the profession see that as being manipulative and somehow sinister. The reality is that if we are interesting people, if we are connecting with them, and if these people see that we are able to deliver knowledge that will lead to them benefiting, then they are happy to engage with us
Mhm.
on that kind of basis.
Well, and the other thing is that, I mean, you're talking about generating what in product development is called the minimal viable product. You're putting the minimal viable product out there, and the minimal viable product is sort of the way to generate interest in a much larger project, so, and a
Mm.
much larger product, and it's the stepping stone to developing um, something better. Now, marketers are beginning to really sort of, and business designers and business model generators are really starting to push back on that and say, well, people don't understand minimal or viable or product, but I think we do in this field, because you're right. You go out, you design grudgeology, you design the space for these talks, you design the space for this feedback to happen, and then what? Like you
Yes.
said, and then what? Well, that's your minimal viable product. And then what is, okay? Can I take from this person, and can I take from that person? Which is what I've discovered with my corporate training. Okay, I could take from this thing and this thing and this thing, and cobble together something else, or build something else around this. I could build a series of blog posts around it, or a PDF file, or a PDF book, or
Mm.
another second level. presentation or a second level speech or a keynote address or a systems design package because now I've got enough, momentum moving forward to be able to do X, X, and X with an organization, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, have you ever thought about sort of like building a team around grudgeology?
Uh, no, I mean, as to say, it's second generation.
Yeah.
We've got the 7 steps to forgiveness, which is this information based information product, which breaks down. It goes back to the books I was reading for grudgeology and the books I've read since around grudgeology
What were some of those
to
books
up
that
my
you
game
were?
and is founded in the research. Sorry, what's that?
What were the books that you were reading? What were some of those?
What were the books? Well, at the time of grudgeology, I was that was largely derived from books by Dr. Fred Luskin.
Mm, okay.
I think he's San Diego. I think so. Dr. Fred Luskin had a couple of books, Forgive for Good and Forgive for Love. Since then, so many books, particularly impressive, I think, and respected within the forgiveness field. A chap called Robert Enright, which I think is a great name for forgiveness. The idea that you would enlighten yourself
Right.
via forgiveness is pretty neat. And Luskin and particularly Enright are rigorous in their research, going back through the academia and such. I mean, this has been a very active field of research since probably the 1970s, 1980s, and it
Right.
seems to be in something of resurgence at the moment.
Right.
I think if we look at the world around us, which seems to be particularly chaotic at the moment, there is so much call for forgiveness. And in a YouTube video that I just posted yesterday, there's something about forgiveness which actually, it's a timeless and a very human challenge,
Right.
to understand what we might mean by forgiveness, to understand how we might go about working on forgiveness and to be forgiving, and to really imagine what the full benefits of it might be.
But we have to forgive ourselves first, right? Which is the hardest sort of leapfrog jump over. And I approach it from the Christian conciliation perspective, which is
Mm,
and the Christian reconciliation perspective, which is backed up by, thousands of years of theology and blah 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 blah, and different religious traditions. But it all starts with self first, which sounds selfish, but at the same time, it's a realization that um, sometimes people lack self awareness. They lack enough self awareness to forgive themselves, right?
mm, mm. Dude, you got a plank in your eye.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. We can pull the plank out of somebody else's, but the moat. Hey, hey, I can't be, I can't be bothered with the moat in somebody else's eye. I got to worry about the plank in my own.
Yeah.
Um, and when I work with churches, okay, so this is something that's very much focused around reconciliation. Matthew 18 and really pushing that and really talking about forgiveness and Paul and Barnabas and those kinds of
Mm,
stories. And that was a core of my education and of my practice. It continues to be a core of my practice, although I don't run around saying, "Hey, we're going to try to forgive everybody," because that sounds to businesses that sounds too transformative. That's too much. That's going too far. We're here to make a profit. We're not here to forgive people. But people work 40 hours a week in your organization. Yeah, but we don't care about that.
yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of corporate forgiveness and forgiveness for leaders, there's something in that, particularly, the forgiveness of self and what that might mean for freeing us up to, to move forward, to no longer hold ourselves back, to get over those bumps and such like. I think that's something to look ahead to. But yeah, and forgiveness is such a loaded word
Oh
that,
yeah.
trying to market forgiveness is difficult, partly because it gets loaded with these, with the religious connotations.
Right.
And we kind of sense that, oh, I know I'm supposed to be forgiving, and I know I should be capable of this. I know that is the response that I should be leaning into, and I still haven't done. And when that happens, we just kind of like heap shame upon shame.
Right.
And also, as I think I said last time, when we hear these catastrophic forgiveness stories, such as mother murdered, for
Yeah.
example, and to be able to forgive in the face of that, we can look at our own lot and think, well, who am I to have not? Who am I to even be bothered by what has happened? So I kind of realized and positioned, and partly to make it safe and contain it, that grudgeology in our 7 steps to forgiveness is all about the relatively low to mid-level resentments that
Right.
people encounter,
Right.
and very often in our mediation work, that that's what we're working with. Sometimes, this isn't catastrophic injury and such like, and sometimes this is really quite everyday humdrum stuff, and sometimes, particularly with the family mediation, what we see is this buildup of resentment.
Right.
And I think the damage that that does for families generally, just the day by day small accumulation of minor resentments building up into something which then becomes insurmountable.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever read the work of like Ben Brown on shame and imperfection and that kind of work?
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
and
Okay.
yeah, I mean it's hard not to name check her work. So
Right.
the second step within 7 steps to forgiveness is about shame and anger.
Right.
And it looks at our own shame of, if I mean, Brown's that whole idea of vulnerability. If people knew this about me, then they would no longer be willing to connect with me.
Right.
And if people knew that I was bothered about what said, what she said, if people knew that I was still harboring that resentment from what my dad said to me 15 years ago, they would think I was pathetic. They would think I was emotionally stunted, that I was hung up, that I was uptight, whatever it might be. And that shame can inhibit us from acknowledging that actually, no, do you know what? I am bothered by this.
Right.
And this is something that I have to work on.
Right.
So shame and anger as well. Uh, my point of reference on anger, I Gary Chapman quite helpful.
Oh
The
yeah.
5 languages
The
of
five love languages.
love.
Yep. Yep.
He's got a yeah. He's got a book on anger, the other side of love,
Okay.
and that's helpful. He and I disagree when it comes to forgiveness, in that he takes a view that forgiveness is dependent upon the other person, the perpetrator, if you can use that word, sharing remorse and repenting,
Mm.
which I think
Mm.
is an interesting point.
That's an interesting
My,
point.
my
Yeah.
yeah, my perspective is that we can allow ourselves, and we can challenge ourselves to exercise forgiveness, uh, even in the absence of repentance or remorse, or even awareness on the other person.
On the other person. Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I think about, and I was talking with somebody about this yesterday, a future guest actually on Earbud U. I kind of did a pre-call with them, but this person is very differentiated across social media and is very young, loves social. And so one of the things that I'm interested in the field of peace building, which encompasses everything, from collaborative law to mediation, is how are we going to deal with the younger generation who's coming in, where they have grown up in a world where forgetting doesn't happen. It used to be forgive and forget, and there was historical memory, and historical memory was always wrong. Well, now we've got the internet, and so if you said something stupid, trust me, there's a hashtag out there for it, or there's a YouTube video out there, or there's a Facebook post out there showing you saying something stupid, and it can continue to haunt you for years and years and years. I mean, what do you do with forgiveness there? How does that fit into our technological world now, where there's going to be more storage and not less?
That's a interesting challenge, and I think again, it speaks into the Brené Brown work on vulnerability, on imperfection. It's uh, I'm quite comfortable with uh, saying stupid things from
Right.
time to time. I think that this expectation of perfection is complete baloney.
Right.
It's stupid, and people are killing themselves in pursuit of it, and it's not going to happen. People get incredibly uptight. They get incredibly defensive, and when it happens, then they start defending the indefensible. They're trying to defend their own immaculate perception, which is rubbish. If we were to get a bit more gracious, cut people a bit more slack, that, yeah, okay, do you know what, that was probably a clumsy thing to say, that probably wasn't the right thing to say, that's downright wrong thing to say.
But you know what? The internet doesn't forgive, though. This is the thing that I found. Like in the United States, I don't know if you're aware of this about the NBC, and this will date this program a little bit, but the NBC nightly news anchor, it's a national broadcasting company, huge, major network here, and the nightly news anchor, Brian Williams, is now sort of getting raked across the coals because, I mean, he lied about some things, or maybe he didn't. I don't know. But one of the
Oh,
hashtags.
is this the guy who didn't get shot down? Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, this guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the guy. Yeah. Okay, so the hashtag, like literally 3 seconds after he was exposed on Twitter, was hashtag Brian Williams misremembers, and there's a whole bunch of memes floating around out there with Brian
Yeah.
Williams talk about Moses, his head superimposed on Moses, bringing down the tablets from the mountain, and then misremembering that he did it. The internet explodes with a lack of forgiveness, with people willing to jump on
Mm.
that moment of I guess you turn your face away for just a moment, and bam, they're on you. The trolls are on you, and that kind of stuff. Like, you see news boards and newspaper sites, and even the BBC has done this, shutting down comments or moving them over to social media because of the trolls and because of the anger and because of the vitriol and because of all these other kinds of things that are evidence of deep-seated grudges that have absolutely nothing to do with the content that they're commenting on, right?
Mm. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree. And it seems that I kind of sense that this will come to a natural point where we realize that our rather simplistic, polarized expectation of 100% consistency is unrealistic. And, and it may well be that we realize that humans, fancy that, are actually fairly complex characters. And within
Right.
that complexity is inconsistency, is the potential for mistake, sometimes quite profound mistake. I think it will. I think there will have to be a debate about, what are we doing to ourselves, and I think there will always be trolls. I think there have always been trolls,
Oh yeah.
and the kind of outspoken people, and there will continue to be.
Right, but they used to have to write a letter to the editor, right? They used to have to go. They would read something in the London newspaper or in the New York Times
Yeah.
newspaper or in the Cedar Rapids, Iowa newspaper, or wherever in the middle of England newspaper, or middle of India, or middle of Russia newspaper, and they would well, maybe not Russia, but they would they would go and they would have to sit down, get a pencil and a piece of paper, or a pen and a piece of paper, and handwrite out their problem, and then put the letter on the stamp, or put the stamp on the envelope, and then put the letter in the mail, and then it would go to the gatekeeper, and the editor would read it and go, yes, this goes in the crank file, and throw it away, or put it in the crank file, or yes, we're going to publish this. So there were all these gatekeepers between the trolls and the content. Now there's no gatekeepers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so with no gatekeepers, I don't know, man. I hope it. I hope we have that conversation, and I hope we have that sort of realization of forgiveness. But I look at some of the things that are happening, particularly in the digital space, and this is one area where I'm very interested in because I think that's the future. And I wonder about the lack of human wisdom in the pursuit of human intelligence.
Yeah, yeah. I'm minded. So my computer just pinged because I'm just looking for a slide that I did recently. I did a talk for a business group, business networking, and it's the marketing point.
Mm-hmm.
Mediators get into the business networking groups this morning before this podcast.
Yeah.
I've just been phoning local business groups. There are so many of them.
Oh
And
gosh,
just
yeah.
say, this is what I do. This is what I can share. This is a value I can bring to your membership. And I've booked up half a dozen talks over the next few months,
Yeah.
just like that.
Yep.
So mediators, get out there, get into the groups,
Get into
give
the
these
groups.
presentations.
That's right.
One presentation that I give is difficult clients, which is, a key commercial conflict that we as mediators can help with in equipping business people with skills to manage that conflict that arises when you've got a difficult client.
Right.
And what I look at there is difficult clients. So let's swap out difficult clients for trolls.
Okay.
So difficult clients challenge us on 3 levels. Trolls challenge us on 3 levels. 1, competence. Can we actually do what we say we can do? 2, our integrity. And 3, that sense of being appreciated, the Maslow hierarchy of needs
Right.
sense. And when I was preparing this, I realized that the point about competency and integrity, we try to defend the indefensible. So when the trolls attack, if we take that news anchor,
Sure.
for example, that is acutely difficult for him,
Right.
and embarrassing, and probably shameful, and all of those things. And what I realized is that we need to realize that um, we need to be able to get over that. And I think one way of doing that may well be this. I've just found a slide, and it's this: aspire to do brilliant work always, but give up on being perfect. And that way we stop defending the impossible. So as long as we aspire to always do the very best that we can, if we get it wrong, and if someone pulls us up and they say, do you know what, Neil, you said that in your talk, and actually that's wrong, we can then actually be really comfortable about accepting that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And we're then able to roll with it and build up on that once again. So, but the problem is that when we have this polarized right and wrong, yeah,
Right.
do you know what? I was wrong.
Right. Well, and you know what I think I look at, and maybe you could talk a little bit about this as we sort of go towards our end here. But I again I filter it through my Christianity, and I filter it through that belief system. And other
Mm,
people are going to filter it through a lot of other different belief systems.
mm,
But one of the things that I wonder is, when you get to that vulnerability piece and you allow people to be vulnerable, it also allows you to. It also puts you in a position where you rely on them, and we have all these tools that are supposed to unite us, but in reality, it seems as though they are separating us, right?
mm,
And separating us not into necessarily into little tribes, but into, and that's a loaded word in and of itself, but into individuals, right? I mean, I have my mobile phone where I get my apps with my news that represents a worldview that I want to see, and I have my Facebook friends, and I have my Twitter feed, and I don't go outside of that, period. And if I'm ever forced to go outside of that and I see something that offends me, bam, I'm coming up with a hashtag, bam, I'm writing a comment. There's no forgiveness there because you've ruined my worldview, and you've impacted me negatively because you even exist. That's a
mm.
problem. That's beyond dealing with difficult people. That's dealing with pathology almost at that level, right?
Oh, you play the pathology card.
I did. I pulled it out. Forget for any psychologists can email me. Jay
Yeah, yeah,
Sorrells, email me and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about.
yeah, and you know what? That's fine. But there is, there is this I mean, there's so many things in it. While you were talking there, I was just thinking, wouldn't it be neat if there was some platform, some app, and someone can roll with this because I haven't got the time or the knowledge to do it, where you could swap Twitter streams with someone for a day.
Oh, that would be incredible. Yeah. Well, Twitter wouldn't let you have
It,
that, but yeah, I mean that would be incredible.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean, it would be, and I mean, it'd be an amazing insight into one level, just the Twitter stream, and I think that's mentioned, but the Twitter stream would be representative, wouldn't it, of those worldviews and beliefs, and the things that we approve of, the things that we don't approve of, and therefore we deselect and filter out. Yes, that's a great point. And if the tools are keeping us apart, they might be.
Yeah, I know. There's always. Don't worry, you're not the only person who's like giving me the qualifier. my fellow marketers give me the qualifier too, so it's fine. It's fine. I'm used to it.
Yeah, they might be. It's. I guess I'm struggling on that one.
Yeah. It's okay. I mean, I struggle too. I mean, there are days when I wake up and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. And Twitter is just the biggest example. Any type of digitized content, or digitized content platform sort of brings this with it. It doesn't matter whether it's Skype or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. It's just that the real hot and popular ones get the most attention, whereas the smaller ones don't. So, I'm struggling with it too. I don't think there are any easy answers here. Which, again, I guess not having any easy answers goes into my last question, which is kind of a combined two. You talked about grudgeology, you talked about your books, you talked about forgiveness and reconciliation, and this has all been great stuff. I want to thank you for coming on the program, Neil, coming in for the 2 parts. This has been an amazing conversation. I think my listeners have gotten a lot out of it. One thing I would like to find out is, and you talked about the marketing being the one thing that you're absolutely terrible at, but what are some things you're absolutely terrible at? And then after that low note, we can go to a high note about what you'd like to promote today.
So, things that I'm really bad at. Okay, I got a short list. I'm really bad at playing guitar. Some people can't play guitar and sing. And I had my first gig in this kind of punk rock band that I got asked to join and play guitar.
Are you going to grow the hair out? Are you going to grow the hair out? Are you going to grow the hair out? Are you going to come back with the tattoos? Your wife's going to kick you out of the house? Like, what are you doing there?
Do you know, all I know is the beard. I'm losing it on top at an alarming rate. One thing I can do, I've discovered, is grow a mighty fine beard. So that's good. Yep. So I've discovered beard porn on the internet. Just seriously, check out the Beard Baron. His whole oeuvre is him preening and stroking his beard on YouTube.
Oh my God! See, and what are the comments? I mean, there's got to be like, once you scroll down in the comments bar below him, there's got to be like 8 trolls after the top 24 of like, this is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, there's some trolls, but they're massively weighed by. Seemingly insecure wannabe beard growers who speak about what an inspiration this is, and the beard community is fascinating. They really get wrapped up in what growing a beard says for individuality, expressionism, all of these things, existentialism. It's a fascinating thing. Anyway, so we digress.
Right. Yeah.
So some people can't play guitar and sing at the same time. I can't play guitar and even move at the same time.
Awesome.
So I realized in this gig, we're about 3 songs in. I look up at the audience. I'm terrified. Look up at the audience for the first time, and I can see my loyal wife at the back of the room. So perhaps she's not so loyal. If she was loyal, she'd be right up front.
Be right up front, right? Yeah.
So I see my loyal wife over there, and she's giving me a certain encouraging look. That's how I interpreted it in the moment.
Right.
And so I. I kind of like smiled and shrugged, that kind of and just trying to do that at the same time as play, I just stumbled and fell and lost my fingering. So things I'm really bad at: playing guitar and moving at the same time. Yeah. The marketing front, sticking with it. Yeah. So the consistent marketing. I'll put an event up on Eventbrite, great resource, and I'll start to flog it, and if no one's bought tickets within 3 tweets within a week, I'll pull the event.
Right.
So,
yeah, you got it. You gotta. Steve Martin has a great biography, and you got to read the Steve Martin. Yeah, you got to read the Steve Martin story about playing to an empty room. So if you're not doing that, you always like that's it. You always go on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So that's really good. And therefore, from a business development point of view, that's really bad because what it means is that you end up doing a gig for an organization who will pay you a fee. Then they'll fill the room with 50. Always the organizers. How much are the delegates paying?
Right.
And you guys organize in time,
Right.
ladies and gents, add business. That's why I urge to, for example, you have to start building the list, the permission-based marketing and stuff,
Right.
so that you can then notify those people. Really working on testimonials. Yesterday, I changed my speakers page on my website at neildenny.com,
Mm-hmm.
and I changed it to incorporate and really testimonials. And midday yesterday, I had booked 3 new talks.
We'll see. There you go. Yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah. That's
we've got to get over ourselves.
right. Yeah. Well, and we got to get out of we got to get out of the ivory tower. We got to come down. We got to say, hey, you know what? Got something that's worthwhile, and offering to the people. Awesome. Well, speaking of coming out of the ivory tower, speaking of that permission, what if anything would you like to promote today?
I would love to, if you go over to 7stepstoforgiveness.com,
Mm-hmm.
what you'll find there is just a kind of sign up page, which will then get you access to a specially recorded version of the Grudgeology keynote. So I've broken that down into 3 7 to 10 minute parts, nicely produced and such like. Which will give you the grudgeology material. You can go and have a look at that. You just go and see what I mean when I'm talking about narrative and the grudge stories, incorporating some of Fred Luskin's approaches to letting go of the grudges. There's some ideas in there about how we can present with slides and graphics. So that was 3-4 years ago when I first did it. That was an experiment for me. The idea of the text-free slide. So, what does it look like to just do it? Yeah, so there's a lot that, our fellow mediators and dispute resolution professionals might borrow or just pinch from that, when they're looking at developing their own presentations. And if you're just interested in this idea of forgiveness, whether for our own edification and curiosity and growth, or to then share with other people, come on board, and that'll be great. I'll be doing a regular kind of webinar, probably once every couple of months, and so new people on the list, they'll get an invite to that, and that's when we'll do some live stuff, which I think is how you and I, isn't it? You came on one for Get Artisan.
Yeah, exactly. I came on the webinar for Get Artisan. I was asking you questions, and I was like, this guy's got something.
Yeah, that's
here.
right. You pushed up front, which is really, when people do that on a webinar, because you're there, and it's like typically I'll do this on a Sunday evening, and you're thinking, are you still listening? And
right.
You kind of put out the article. So has anyone got any questions? And thankfully, some people do. So that's good. Yeah. So we'll be doing that, and the way to just get into that, see what we're doing, kind of experience how that kind of pop over to 7 Steps to Forgiveness. It's the number 7, and sign up. That would be great.
Awesome. Very good. Well, you know what? Thank you very much, Neil, for coming on Earbud U. We loved having you.
It's a real pleasure. I'll be sure to share this on my networks and send people that you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you very much. You have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.